What was Jeffrey Epstein actually doing in New Mexico? Most people think Epstein's Zorro Ranch was just a remote getaway, but Eric Weinstein reveals a far more calculated motive on the podcast. It was about positioning himself next to America's most sensitive military and scientific facilities, Los Alamos and Sandia National Laboratories. Watch until the end to see how the mathematical concept of elliptic curves ties directly into modern cryptography, and why Epstein was so eager to establish a listening post right next to Harvard's math department.
And by the way, the UFO thing that's now blowing up, there's going to be some crazy science collision with the UFO narrative. There's no way of stopping it at this point.
So you've turned a corner on this. Let's talk about that, because I saw you on Jesse Michael's show, and you were talking about how just a few years ago you thought that the entire narrative was complete nonsense.
Probably 5-6 years ago by now.
And what changed?
There was no way to explain. So Jesse was going on and on about it. I said, Jesse, you're a smart guy. And you know, I often would call him the back alley scholar. So he knew a lot of stuff that was sort of forbidden knowledge. And he wouldn't be quiet about it. So I said, okay, I'm going to disabuse you of the idea that you're actually into something. And I realized very quickly, at a minimum, there is a massive denied program, like usually called a special access program. One or more. There's no way to synchronize that number of people who've had experiences that are so similar. And there was a lot of stuff that I couldn't make sense of. And what attracted me in a certain sense was I couldn't come up with any explanation. It's so rare. I usually have exactly the opposite problem, which is I come up with too many explanations. I can't come up with a single explanation that makes sense of what I now know. And also the fact that the government outreached to me and to Sam Harris and to Lex Friedman. And, you know, there was this thing where these guys who checked out said there's going to be a massive disclosure and we need people to disseminate these things to the public, and you have a share of the public who listens to you. And we need to get you informed so that you can help mediate the disclosure.
So what prompted this change in narrative?
What's going on behind with the government?
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't know. Look, we don't know what the thing or things are yet. Some of it is, so low quality that it's embarrassing to be seen with it. So my colleagues who don't want to take this seriously use that, like, okay, so you're now on the little green men train. And I said, no, I'm on the special access program train. There's for sure special access program or programs that have UFO on the side of them that may or may not have aliens or craft or non-human intelligence in them. It may be that it's decoys. It may be, I don't know what it is. There's no way to deny that there's like a giant lump under the carpet.
And what prompted you to change your opinion and decide that there is some sort of a special access program?
When I started coming in contact with totally sober people from reasonable walks of life who would say the craziest things to me, and a lot of them checked and they didn't yet know each other.
Like what kind of crazy things?
Let me take somebody who's public. Brandon Fugel, for example, was at a dinner where he started talking about being visited by a craft a few feet over his head that came over the mesa, and his head of security was catatonic, standing in the back of a pickup truck, unable to move. And it was just way too specific, and a shared experience that multiple people had had, right? And so, you know, the joke, of course, is that the secrets of Skinwalker Ranch, or you know, whatever this
right.
There's real stuff going on there, and there's nonsense BS that the History Channel has packaged to come up with a salacious series, and one is funding the other. So I don't know what that is, but like some of these injuries are real. And, you know,
injuries.
Like Gary Nolan talking about people reporting, you know, Gary Nolan told me the story that somebody had said that a ball of energy would come and enter the body and move around and then leave. And he said, you know, the craziest thing is that when I inspected the tissue, there was a path of necrosis that can't be explained, like something that shows up on imaging. And Gary's a really smart, serious guy. I can check a lot of the things that he says scientifically. Why would he say something like that? I mean, I didn't see it myself, but...
Well, he's also done some very strange work on material science.
Right.
Where he's analyzed particles or little pieces of metal and alloys that have come from wreckages from the 1970s and 60s.
Yeah, that I don't know the provenance. Like, he'll carry around a little thing and he'll show it to me. He'll say, you know, there's no combination of materials and alloys that this matches that we know how to produce. And I say, okay, it doesn't mean anything to me. Again, it's all. I have no at this point. I have no primary contact with anything anomalous. I just have all sorts of secondary stuff. And by the way, the thing that you saw with the Jesse Michaels and American Alchemy, boy, did that get a response inside the government, that particular episode.
How so?
I had a lot of people who had stopped talking to me about UFOs who suddenly, I had like 8 calls immediately after it aired. Hey, Eric, just thought I'd catch up with you. And I was like, oh, okay. There was a huge discussion inside. And the first, without getting into particulars, the first official outreach, like really official outreach, the checks in the wake of that episode. And I'm not under any NDAs. Nobody's told me anything that I can't discuss. But that may change. One thing that's very clear to me is that when I hear something from many sources, I don't need to protect it anymore. It's already out. Okay? I have now heard the White Sands story from many sources.
This is the one where the crafts hovered over the base, shut down the nuclear program? Is that it?
I'm just going to say what I can say that's fuzzed out that can't be traced to anybody.
Okay.
I was very upset with this shutdown of the El Paso airspace.
That was recently.
Yeah, it was supposed to be we had a problem with cartel drones.
Right.
I don't believe that. I think Texas is another name for New Mexico. I think El Paso is a name for White Sands. Can we get a map of the United States that can focus on White Sands and El Paso? I think we have a problem that we've lost control of our airspace.
You think this was part of what happened in New Jersey as well?
I can't say as much because what I know, no. What happened around New Jersey, I don't have from as many sources that I feel comfortable saying that this is fuzzed out. I can fuzz out the El Paso story. Nobody has told me that El Paso was shut down because of the problem at White Sands.
Okay.
People have said things about New Jersey that is...
All right. So there's El Paso.
Also here, White Sands, up right above it.
How far away is that?
My guess is about an hour.
By driving?
Yeah, let's see. It's probably 60, 70, 80 miles at most.
Okay.
So I don't know what's going on, but my guess is... So on Pierce Morgan, I said this thing, which is that New Mexico is the connector of the nuclear story, the Epstein story, and the UFO story. They're all going to come together. Remember when we were only talking about the island?
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, I think I was the first person to seize on this. There's this thing that isn't an interview, which is Steve Bannon trying to train Jeffrey Epstein how to respond, to rehabilitate him. And if you can find this is...
I've seen it.
Okay.
It's very weird.
So he says, you want to know about why I got Zorro Ranch in New Mexico. Can we play this clip? Can you find... I think Jesse repackaged it after I pointed it out. But this is the story that, like, somehow we're so hung up about sex. We're either angry about trafficking or we're getting off on the idea that all these rich people are are going to get their comeuppance, or, we keep turning the Epstein story into something other than a scientific espionage story, which is one of its facets.
It's one component.
It's one component.
Right.
Yeah, but it doesn't excite us that this is a guy spying. Control of science, Joe, is not something that is officially a big issue, and it is a massive issue.
It's not publicly a big issue.
That's correct, yeah.
And he clearly had
let's back up.
big interest in
So
science.
why did I buy a ranch in New Mexico in 1993? So that gives you some sense. So I would have funded it in 1990. Los Alamos, which was the high-energy lab up in New Mexico, was losing all its scientists.
In
They were
Los
closing-
Alamos, it was where Oppenheimer and where a lot of the nuclear weapons program, the bomb.
That's where the
original bomb.
Manhattan Project.
Manhattan Project
Yes.
was
Yes, sir.
as Los Alamos, and you bought your property out in New Mexico to be near that?
Yes, because the scientists were going to be, they cut the funding for high-energy physics. But the people who worked in Los Alamos would still be in the Santa Fe area.
They cut that because this was the Cold War dividend, right?
I don't remember exactly why. It was because, again, people thought that physics and high-energy physics really wasn't that important.
Because that was about nuclear weapons.
No, it was because they decided, which may be not right, this was the same time that Murray Gell-Mann came up with the term quark, Q-U-A-R-K. He picked it out of an old poem, the word quark. But it was it was mysterious. So they were starting to understand in the 90s that our world of the physics world, there was things that were just unexplainable. They called it strange things. You gave it a name. You gave it some characteristics. You called it had charm, was one of the terms. It had a charm. It had a flavor. It had a color. But nobody really, no one, Mr. Bannon, understood what it was. Just like the financial system.
And you wanted to investigate that.
I wanted to see if we could build tools so others smarter than me could help investigate it.
And that was the beginning of your concept of the Santa Fe Institute.
Yes.
And Santa Fe Institute was founded to do study in this type of...
Can these areas of strange things be described by some form of mathematics?
Okay. Now, what you're seeing there is fascinating. Like, just take, by the way, very well isolated, exactly the bit that I wanted. In that interview, or that training, he claims to have founded the Santa Fe Institute. Santa Fe Institute was founded, I think, in 1984, not 1990 or 1993. Bannon clearly knows more about why these scientists were being defunded than does the person who buys this property. Now, that property is not only close to Los Alamos, it's also close to Sandia National Laboratory. What people said to me, Eric, you said he was an idiot. He's clearly very knowledgeable. You can see there that you were wrong. I was like, that is an actor. That is not anyone smart with proximity to Murray Gell-Mann and others. Like, he knew Murray Gell-Mann well. Murray Gell-Mann didn't name quarks in 1990. This goes back to like the 60s when George Zweig called them aces and Gell-Mann called them quarks, for 3 quarks for Muster Mark that came out of James Joyce. So he's just repeating stuff that he doesn't understand. And why did he buy the house, Zorro Ranch? To be close to the scientists whose funding was cut. The people who make weapons and who do high energy physics, who had the rug pulled out from under them by the United States when they won the Cold War by putting this pressure on the Soviet Union. Like, there's no thing more important than theoretical physicists, you idiots. And you don't fund these people and you don't watch them. Like, the Department of Energy is supposed to have counterintelligence to stop creeps from hanging around the national labs, which is America's secret university system. Hello? And that's what he was doing. He was buying a property to be close to the national labs in New Mexico that make the weapons and that are in charge of trying to figure out the future. So if you think about the national labs as this parallel thing to the university system, But it's the secret part where you have to be American and you have to have a security clearance and all this kind of stuff. Epstein set up a listening post. Now, what's the UFO story? The UFO story is all about nukes. And what was Epstein doing in Cambridge, Massachusetts? The analog of Zorro Ranch is named One Brattle Square. It's right in the heart of Harvard Square. I know it like the back of my hand. It's a 7-minute walk to the Science Center. The Harvard Science Center on floors 3, 4, and 5 is where the math department is. And who was Epstein's initial contact in the math department? It wasn't Martin Nowak, who he funded. It was a different guy named Benedict Gross. Dick Gross was an expert in number theory and in elliptic curves. And elliptic curves are what power the cryptography behind Bitcoin, behind public keys. You're talking about a guy who was setting up listening posts next to extremely sensitive stuff that we've stupidly left unprotected in the open university system or defunded in our national labs.
And when you say listening posts, like, what do you mean?
He's going to hold. No.
No? You just remained in contact with these people?
Joe, you've got real money. Guys with real money use dinner. Dinner is an incredible thing. I watched Peter Thiel use dinner. Fly people in for dinners. You put people up in a nice hotel for 3 nights. You serve them amazing food from a private chef. You get a black car to collect them, and they'll tell you anything. I don't mean that Peter was doing this in an evil way, but I watched dinner after dinner after dinner as people disgorged all they knew because they were so happy they're getting a $200 bottle of wine and being treated like humans. Like respected. So in part, you have to understand that dinner, in and of itself, or a mansion, or a first-class ticket, is all it takes to get people to start talking.
Jeffrey Epstein was CIA. The communications network at Zorro Ranch prove it. The DOJ's own file showed Epstein built a military-grade encrypted link to satellite orbit at Zorro Ranch. The contractor who built it now holds a Pentagon missile defense contract.
So remember,
I didn't know about that.
Jeffrey Epstein is a construct.